Welcome, everyone, to an NCAA Men's Basketball Selection Committee Chair breakdown of the top 16 reveal. I'm Andy Katz, pleased to be joined by Bubba Cunningham, the athletic director at North Carolina and the chair of the 2025 Men's Basketball NCAA Tournament. Bubba, you have 5 new members of the 12, and this is the first time in this process the collective 12 got a chance to actually bracket. How'd it go?
It went great. It was a great experience for all of us. Those of us who've been on the committee for a while get a chance to think about it again and kind of go through the mechanics for the new folks. And they were a great group. They asked a lot of really good questions. The selection process, the seeding process, and then ultimately the bracketing process. It was a really a good week for all of us. We're inside a month now, and so I appreciate the staff really bringing all of us along.
So, Bubba, let's deal with the first line. Alabama and Auburn. So Auburn, Alabama 1-2. Duke was 3. Florida 4. Tennessee 5. Texas A&M was at 6. So 3 SEC on the 1 line, 2 SEC on the 2 line. What was it about the top SEC teams that allowed them to dominate the first 2 lines?
Well, I think we've seen it. They started out the season way back in November, winning a lot of games. They won a whole bunch of non-conference games, and now the intensity of their conference schedule, they're really good teams. So as you mentioned, Auburn and Alabama being 1 and 2, 13 quad one wins for Auburn. And they, quite frankly, they were the unanimous selection of our group of those that were eligible to vote and said, you know what, they're right now, they're the best team. So they got the number 1 seed. And you're right. I mean, the SEC is having a phenomenal year, and they were rewarded with this first bracket by suggesting that they would get, what is that, 6 of the first 7 teams. So they're right there.
How much does it help that so many of them are at the top in terms of the geographic sort of distribution of the SEC teams? Because a lot of these teams might not meet until deep into the NCAA tournament. So how did that help in terms of where you placed these SEC teams?
Well, the bracketing principles are such that you really shouldn't try to play conference games until you get all the way to the Elite Eight. But if we end up with more teams than that we can't bracket, so we have to separate them the best that we can. But right now the bracket is working, so we may have to make some adjustments as we go. But the SEC is very strong, the Big 12 is strong, the Big 10, and we've had these kinds of issues before. And again, the bracketing procedures allow us to move them around if we need to. We certainly don't want to take anybody off a particular seed line, but we're gonna bracket this thing the best we can, given the teams that qualify.
And Bubba, as I continue down the line, the other twos were Purdue and Houston. Then you go to the threes, you have Iowa State, Kentucky, another SEC team, Wisconsin, and Arizona. Then you go to the 4 line, Texas Tech, Michigan, Kansas, and St. John's. And from what I can tell, for the majority of these teams, there are a ton of quad 1 and 2 wins. Most of these teams have double figures of Q1 and Q2. How much does that tell you that these schools went out and played each other and played quality teams to get in this position?
They really did. I mean, the SEC, I give them a ton of credit, but there's also a lot of other schools that have done the same thing. I think Texas A&M, it is an SEC school. I think they have Purdue, I think had a wonderful non-conference schedule. Houston had a really good non-conference schedule. Now they weren't quite as successful as some of the other schools were, but their defense is phenomenal. And I'm pleased with where we are today. And we still have so many more games to go. A month of conference play yet to go. And it's going to be very interesting to see this thing unfold in the next 4 weeks.
Outside of the top 16, how many other schools did you guys look at that almost made the top 16?
Well, the next two that were right there were Michigan State and Marquette. And so, I mean, those are really, really good teams as well. And, when it comes down to trying to get what is the last 16 team or 17 or 18, I mean, those are great programs. They'll continue to win, but they were just outside the top 16 this time. So they were the next two.
So percentage-wise, Bubba, the majority of teams that are in the top 16 in mid-February tend to stay there in some order when we get to Selection Sunday. There's always some movement. Someone's going to drop out. someone may move in the next 3.5 weeks. What do you think some of these teams need to do outside of the obvious win to potentially get in to those last couple of spots on that four line?
Well, you said it. They do have to win, and it's going to be hard. I mean, when you take a look at the quality of these leagues, you're going to play all conference games from now on. And the one thing that did kind of separate a little bit here is that the teams that can win on the road. We talk about it as a committee. Who'd you play, where'd you play, and how'd you do? The tournament is not played at home. It's a neutral site tournament. So if you can play well on the road and get those road wins, I think that's probably the thing that would make the most difference going forward.
All right, well, we're almost, like you said, we're basically a month away from Selection Sunday, about 3+ weeks of the regular season. Then we get into Champ Week. And this is always just like when we all feel it's just so close to getting back to getting that bracket in our hands. Bubba, appreciate your time, and we'll see you in Indianapolis.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Andy.